Hey, congratulations on the film. I had the opportunity to sit down and watch it yesterday, and I've got to say, it's an absolutely amazing film, so congratulations.
No, thank you very much.
So, I was wondering if you could start off by telling us a little bit about where this idea came from for this movie, because it is such an unusual and unique idea for a film. Where did the idea come from in the first place?
It's difficult to pinpoint exactly, but the writer Garrett Shanley and I worked on a short film in 2011 called Foxes, which and the short film was the kind of a reaction to what was going on socio-politically in Ireland at the time. There were these housing developments springing up all over the country, and the economy was doing really well. It was the years of the Celtic Tiger, when Ireland was doing really well with the economy. And then the crash came in 2008 and resulted in a lot of these houses being left abandoned. So there's these places that ended up being called ghost estates around the country. So we made a short film set in one of these places, like a real location, about a young couple who are kind of trapped emotionally and financially in one of these places, and the woman rejoins nature via supernatural means. But while making the film, we were kind of scratching the surface of some themes that we thought were really interesting. So when we finished it, we started thinking about how we could properly dig into those themes around the atomization of society, a kind of the social contract and what that means to people, and explore those ideas in a sci-fi way, and expand it out to be a much more universal story. And that's sort of how the ball got rolling.
Yeah, the sci-fi element of it. Tell us a little bit about how you actually fleshed that out with Garrett, because that is what makes this movie so unique. So how did you flesh out that sci-fi element to this film?
I think just started out like that. We thought, okay, what if one of these places just went on and on forever? It was like an infinite quantum loop of a place, and the antagonists were able to manipulate time and space. I think that's what got us into it. And I think some of the sci-fi that I really like is also saying something about society. So they were the elements that were in play when we were setting out. So we're both big sci-fi fans and genre fans in general. So it wasn't a particular challenge, to be honest. It was just like going into the Twilight Zone.
The theme is very universal as well, because it's something that we're seeing here in Australia at the moment as well. We're actually have this really, well, we did before the pandemic, where they were buying up farmlands and building housing estates with these little townhouses, but they're actually building more of them than what there were people buying homes. So a lot of them were sitting there. Were you, at the time when you first started working on the film, were you worried that perhaps the theme of the film wouldn't be universal?
Well, I think like there's the housing developments being abandoned and all that kind of stuff is just one element that was an inspiration. But I think on a more of a psychological and philosophical level, it can still resonate with people all over the world, because we're sort of funneled and pressured into a way that society wants you to conform to from birth, really. You kind of, work towards having a job and stability and being able to buy a house and then settle down and have kids and pay off your mortgage. And when you finish that, you expire and
Yeah.
it all starts again. So I think that's pretty universal in a capitalist society, really.
Yeah. There was also that great theme there as well with Tom and Gemma as a couple, where when they were asked if they already had children and they said no, they were almost mocked for that. Was that something that you were looking at as well, that young couples are kind of expected to go off and have a family even though they may not be ready for it?
Yeah, well, it's not a one-size-fits-all. Life doesn't really work like that. So there's definitely an element of that in the film of, well, people can pick up on that, it's about conformity and all that kind of thing, and homogeneity. But actually, in that scene, the intention was that the estate agent that's the first bit of mimicry he does.
Yep.
Which is a lot more mimicry to come later, but when he does it in that context, it's kind of unnerving, and it seems as if he's mocking them, but they're not quite sure. Did he just copy me, or are they mocking me?
Yeah.
Or what's happening?
Of course, you've got an amazing cast here with Jesse and Imogen. Tell us a little bit about how they become attached to the project. Were they people that you saw in those roles very early on, or did they become attached later on?
No, it was a bit of a process. Imogen came on board, first of all, and we'd met and we got on very well, and she really liked the script. She was sort of perfect for the role of Gemma, but then we were thinking about who you could get to play Tom, and there's not that many kind of male actors around that age who are kind of willing to play second fiddle to a female lead, because it is really her story.
Yep.
And so we sat down and we had a list and we were going through it and we were talking about various actors, and we started talking about Jesse Eisenberg, and Imogen had worked with Jesse before, so she knows him, and she knows the kind of films that he likes and the material he responds to, and she thought he'd really like this. And then I initially hadn't thought of Jesse, to be honest. I was thinking, yeah, God, that could be really interesting. Now that Imogen was on board, because they're about the same age, they're about the same height, they both had really interesting faces, they look like normal people. So she was able to flip Jesse the script there and then on her phone, and he read it in about 2 days, and he loved it and wanted to meet up. So I met him in New York, and we hung out and we got on well. So then we were able to go and set a date when they were both available.
What were they like to direct? Because they both put in such marvelous performances in this film, and at times the performances that they put in almost seems more like theatre than what it does film. So what were they actually like to direct, and what was it like on set with them?
Yeah, they were great. They're very collaborative, easygoing, funny people. They're brilliant to work with. They both work very differently. They might not notice it, but I do. Imogen's much more unpredictable and kind of wild, which is great. And Jesse's more measured, and he likes to have more precise direction sometimes. So they were. It was great working with the two of them, because it was a challenge. They both have different kind of methods of working. But yeah, I mean, we built a set for the interior and the exterior, so it was a bit like a play in some ways, and even the structure of the film is very much like life in 3 acts, with cutting to black between, it's like the curtains closing and reopening between acts. So it was definitely an approach that we talked about to give very naturalistic performances in a very unnatural and heightened setting, and I think they both kind of were put through the ringer on that front. I mean, like, sometimes I'd be watching the monitor, and Imogen would be going through some of the stuff she was going through, and it was it's one thing reading it on paper, but actually seeing a human have to go through all the suffering that she has to go through, it's kind of heartbreaking, because she goes there emotionally for real. It's not something she can kind of come in and out of immediately.
Yeah.
So it takes a while to kind of reset afterwards, because she gives it her all.
Yeah.
She gave it, I think, but they both did brilliantly, but Imogen particularly, I think, shines in this film.
How did you also go about casting for the role of the boy? Because that is such a pivotal role in this movie, and if you think back to movies like The Omen and stuff like that, sometimes child actors, they're what sticks in your mind when you think about the movie. So how did you go about casting the role of the boy, and what made you decide on the actors that you decided on?
Yeah, it was a tricky one, obviously. He was written as this child who could mimic people, and he kind of looked like a little perfect Pinocchio or something. So we started casting, we were seeing lots of kids, and most 7-year-olds are like normal 7-year-olds. They come in and they're a bit nervous and shy and they forget their lines. But Senan sent in a self-tape, first of all, and he was brilliant. I was like, holy shit, this kid he looks the part, and he was sort of very measured and particular with his movements. So I got him to come in, and we with a bunch of other kids, and tried some stuff out in the studio, and he did the whole throat thing, and he did the play, going back and forth between the, at the beginning when you first see him, when he's like growing up from being a baby, and it was just so unnerving and perfect. So it was sort of a no-brainer to cast him. So once we had him, I'd try and find a guy who looked like he could be an older version of him, very symmetrical sort of face. We saw a lot of people for that role as well. But Aina Hardwick just had this presence to him, and he has this sort of very cinematic face. So he actually came out. We didn't actually cast Aina until we were already filming. So initially in the script there was 3 boys. There was 4 with the baby. But there was supposed to be a boy who was about 15, who we decided to alter the scenes a little bit, because if in the edit we might end up with only one scene with the boy who's 15, and it would just be weird. But he actually ended up having a little cameo in the sex room towards the end.
Yeah. When you're working on a movie like this with such deep themes, and there's a little bit of a horror element there as well, how difficult is it to work with a young cast member? Like, how do you shield them from some of the things that happens in the movies? Because I always love that element where sometimes you have actors in a movie who are actually too young to go and watch it in a cinema. So how do you protect them from those elements?
Yeah, he read most of the script. I think his mother sort of blocked off some sections of it,
Yeah.
But he has to curse in the film as well. Says I'm fucking disgusting, which he relished in. He's allowed to say that. But I think working with child actors, it's a certain amount of it is to do with chemistry between the director and the kid. And because I've worked with kids in commercials and stuff as well, and I find that if you can talk to them normally, the same as you talk to the adults, that you get better results. Sanon's a very intelligent young actor. He had some great ideas. He even improvised a little bit here and there. So I think and his mum was very cool as well.
Yeah.
She wasn't some sort of she wasn't pressuring him into being an actor. She just found it fascinating that he was so into it.
Yeah.
And when we were in the 2 weeks or so before shooting, he went method, and he was going around the house, imitating his parents, and going to supermarkets to be copying the checkout assistant or whatever. So yeah, I think with him it wasn't particularly difficult. He was more on it. Young kids on set have nothing else going on in their lives, so they're completely focused.
Yeah. The film also had success at Cannes. Tell us a little bit about what that experience was like for you going to Cannes with the film.
Yeah, it was amazing. We were still very much in post on the film when we submitted it. We hadn't graded it. We hadn't done the music. There's blue screen and stands and everything in the cut, but we decided we'd send it in anyway. And they came back really quickly. I was actually going for a walk with my dad and my wife in the location that we shot our first film in, Without Name. When I got the call, and I was like, holy shit, they actually got in. But then we had like a lot of work to do to get it finished on time. So we actually only finished the film about 3 days before it screened.
Wow.
We had to get it over to Paris for them to do the subtitles, and then they had to get it down to Cannes on time to get loaded up to screen. So we were right up against it. So we didn't really have time to, think about it very much. But it was great to just be finished and then screen it immediately.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'd never even been to Cannes, like just gone to the festival or to the market or anything like that before. So to go with a film was amazing. Yeah, the team there were brilliant, and you could go for a swim every morning. And it's the first time I've ever done that intense press junket stuff as well. So that was a whole learning curve. But it was a great experience.
Now, I know you've got another interview to get to, so I'll only ask one quick question. What would you like to say to all of our listeners out there who are about to watch this movie while they're in lockdown?
I'd say that lockdown probably won't seem so bad after you watch the movie. When I've done Q&A, like introduced to film festivals and stuff, I do let people tee it up that it is a weird, quite surreal story that's funny, creepy, sad, and that you kind of need to be a little bit open-minded to get the most out of it, because it's a little bit unconventional.
Definitely.
But if you know nothing going in, don't watch the trailer, you'll probably get more out of it.
Yeah. Well, mate, again, congratulations on such a fantastic film, and thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us tonight.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks so much for having me on.
Not a problem at all. All right, mate, you stay safe, and hopefully we get to talk again in the future.
Yeah, you too.